Welcome to Evangelicalish, where we discuss the good, the bad, and the ugly of the American Evangelical Church, deconstruction, faith, and God's love through it all. Join us for these episodes live on our Evangelicalish YouTube page on Wednesdays at 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 Central, and 6 o'clock Pacific. Let's journey together. Hello, everybody. Oh, I don't like that view.
Yeah, no, that's our least favorite. And then as soon as Paul's not here, we open with that one. That's so good. Hello to everyone, and welcome back into Evangelicalish. I'm Jeremy.
I'm April. Am I frozen?
No, you're not. Not on my end. Not on my end.
Okay, it was frozen on my end. Sorry.
So, all right. Before we get in, tonight we have a really great guest. Paul is out this week. He is enjoying his son's senior season of baseball. So by all means, we're gonna let Paul do that, because that is a very important time and a special time for them as a family. So, that may come up occasionally. So you'll just have to put up with me. And then, as always, enjoy it. That's how this works. So, April, you continue your perfect attendance, your hot streak. You haven't missed one yet.
I haven't. I'm a straight A student in adulthood as well. Overachiever.
Right. First off, I just kind of want to start out. I know that we wanted to kind of, before we bring our guest in, we kind of wanted to talk about being off last week, right?
Yeah, we are in 3 different time zones. And it can be hard for us to get together. And we've been wanting to talk about high level of what are we doing with the show? Because we want to make sure that all types of voices are being elevated on our show. And it's not just the 3 of us rambling every week, even though that's fun.
Absolutely. And just trying to be wise in how we manage this show. And actually we had some really great, authentic conversation in the last week. So we appreciate, your grace as we took a week to just kind of reflect and introspect. So I do want to say this. I want to, I think there had been, some times when my zealousness or my excitement about topics or about things that we have shared, has had me jump in or over you at times. And, that was in a kind way brought to us by a couple of listeners. And so I just wanted to say, as we've looked at that, as we've looked at a number of different things, elevating, BIPOC voices. And as we've talked about, just what this show looks like moving ahead and how we can best benefit those who are listening and those that are a part of this community. And because we're so grateful for you. But as we talk about those things, April, I just wanted to share with you tonight, that as we kind of discuss some of that, I know that there are some places that I, as your co-host and as somebody who gets the blessing of, that's very churchy, gets the blessing of being in this space with you, has at times come up short just because I'm overzealous and I'm overexcited, and that's truly what it is. And I know we've talked about that. But at times I have not given you the appropriate space or the appropriate area, to say the things and to fully get out some of your thoughts and to be in a moment where it's really important and people need to hear your voice. So I want to offer my apology to you, in front of our audience as well. And I know we didn't talk about that earlier. But I think that that's really important, that people know that we are introspecting about our show, how we can be better and how we can be better voices for this community. And I want to do right, not just by the community, but by you and Paul as well. And so I know that was something that we kind of talked about. And so I just, I want folks to know that I am seeking to do better on behalf of the community and on behalf of you guys. And I love you a whole bunch. You're my sister. I'm grateful for you. And so anyway, I'm thankful that we can do this together.
Well, thank you. I was not expecting you to do that. And I feel awkward, but I forgive you, and everything's good. And I know that you have a good heart. And I think everyone in our community knows that that you have a good heart and you mean well, and your passion is great.
Well, I appreciate that. I just, I don't know. I was just thinking about it later after we met today. And I was like, I know that a couple of folks had emailed us about like, man, Jeremy just seems like he just gets really excited. And like, I know there was like a specific time that I kind of hopped over you and centered myself, and that wasn't appropriate.
Yeah.
And so I know you and I have talked about that separate from here, and we have walked through that, and we're better because of it.
Yeah.
All three of us are better because of it. But I want our community to know that we had talked about that we had shared that with each other, and that, you and I and Paul had all kind of walked through that season. But I just, I just think it's important to share that out loud.
No, absolutely. And I do think when Paul comes back, we can kind of talk about, some of the inner workings that happened last week, and some of the important conversations that we did have. And also going forward, one thing that we have been terrible at, and we will get to our guest who is like part of our like melodrama right now. He's probably like, what are they bringing me into?
Sorry.
But one thing that we are going to try to do is be better at organization. And that is one thing that we have lacked, is that sometimes we decide what our show topic is the day of. And that's not very conducive for having guests on the show. And it's hard with 3 different time zones, because I'm on Eastern time, Jeremy's Central, and Paul's on California time. So anyway, we're going to do better at that. So do you have anything else before I jump to our guest?
No, that was
okay.
Sorry, that was the only curveball I had
Thanks
tonight.
For that.
Sure. I apologize. I probably should have warned you, but I just.
All right. I was like, a public apology. What do I do? Okay, no, it's fine.
No, you don't do anything. Yeah.
Yeah. Kristen said Jeremy's 5-minute apology. Lexi asked me real quick, what's my Enneagram type? This is the bane of my existence, because I've taken that test so many stinking times and I feel like I get a different answer every time. But my most common one is a 2 and an 8. And I said a 2 wing 8 once, and they were like, you can't do a wing. I don't know much about it, so we're not going to talk about it because I'm very ignorant when it comes to the Enneagram. Anyway, okay, tonight we have a special guest. His name is Antwuan Malone, and I became Facebook friends with him in summer of 2020. He wrote an article for my brother's from one of my brother's things. He runs a Wayhouse Media. He wrote an article about racial reconciliation and the height of a lot of the racial stuff, and Relevant picked it up, and I was like, whoa. So he is featured in Relevant magazine, which is a pretty big deal. He is also the executive director of Elevate, which is a young adult ministry. But one thing that has impressed me about him is, while he's still in evangelical spaces, which most of us here come from, some of us very recently, Jeremy, he has been actively trying to get people in the church to listen. And I want to hear more from him. But he did a series called Church Hurt in churches. And I think from what I saw, it was just people coming up and just explaining and just telling their stories of how the church had hurt them. And it was just listening. There was no demonization. There were no questions. It was just listening, which I feel like is something that needs to be done. So without further ado, let me bring Antwuan Malone into the show. Welcome, Antoine.
Hey, what's up? What's up? Hey, I love family meetings, and I love awkwardly sitting inside family meetings. We used to have to do it like growing up, and just like sitting there and watching like someone else's living room, like the family talk about it, and then we just go back and we just play video games afterwards. So I feel very comfortable today after having done it. I feel like we're all a little bit closer. You guys are my cousins now, as a result of a little.
This is what I went into the show hoping would happen. I'm just letting you know, like, I've accomplished my goal. I will see.
You've done it. Hey, man,
goodness.
I feel great. Thank you for that introduction, April. I really appreciate that. I'm so excited to be with you guys. I've watched your show a lot and kind of just followed y'all's journeys from afar. And so it's fun to get to know you guys and be a part of this show. Thanks for having me.
By the way, people are sharing their Harry Potter houses in the chat now.
Oh, we went from Enneagram to Harry Potter, which April, by the way, you said a 2. I would have guessed, because I know a little bit about the Enneagram. I would have guessed 2 wing 3 is what I would have guessed. Or 3 wing 2. Actually.
I have got a 2 wing 3 before, and then I've gotten an 8 before, and like this is my
You was
thing.
especially fiery that day when you took.
Yeah,
when you took
well,
the
I
test?
am like I am a conundrum of fiery and like I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings and it doesn't make any sense and like I just feel like I walk in this tension constantly. But I am a Ravenclaw. That one I've always gotten Ravenclaw on Harry Potter.
I don't even know
So-
what that
on
means.
Raven.
Oh, okay.
Jeremy, you're not on the Harry Potter train.
My wife is a huge fan. I have not. My 5th grade teacher read the book to me, like at recess.
Wow.
Like, I mean, that's as far as I know.
I know we're all judging you right now quietly in our.
And I've also not taken the Enneagram. I guess I need to do that. 'cause
Well,
everybody always talks
okay,
about
but
it
it's
all the
not
time.
all that's cracked up to be because I can't get a solid answer. Which
It
I
was like I don't know. Here's the thing. It turns out that you're not just one thing in the Enneagram. But anyway, I don't want to get into it. I'm not a super duper proponent of it, but I do like having a conversation every once in a while, like a Gen Xer would.
Yeah.
Like-
Gen Xer. Are you a Gen Xer?
I am. I'm Gen X.
Jeremy, are you a millennial? Or
I am. Yeah.
I'm also a millennial, but I'm
Yeah,
like older millennial
You
now.
darn kids.
They're like
What?
elder millennials.
So not to be that guy. Well, so I was born in 88.
You're going to be that guy though.
I'm going to be. Well, no, actually, I found another way. I was born in 88, and
I was born in 88.
Hey,
Hey.
I love that.
78. Can I get a 78?
I was
78?
going to ask April, what year were you born? And then in real time, I went, that's rude. So I backed up.
Is that why you say you weren't going to be that guy?
Yeah, exactly. And then I figured
That's
out another way
hilarious.
to go about this. And
He
I
didn't want to
still
have
got-
to apologize to me
I
on the
still
show
got-
Again, yeah,
another
yeah.
5-minute apology next
Yeah.
week.
This is what
Can't deal
repentance
with
looks
that.
like, ladies and gentlemen. You change behavior after the confession. This is what we've done.
But you see, I did though.
That's what I'm saying. You did a fantastic job. What a way to model that.
But isn't millennial 86? Is that what it is? That the beginning of the millennial generation?
I think
like
86?
that.
it's around there. I think there's some crossover. Like there's always a few year crossover where like
Right.
you could go either way. I feel like I don't know.
Antoine, did you say 78?
78, my friend. I'll
There's
be 43.
no way.
I'll be 43 on October the 11th. So how many days it is?
No
from now?
way.
18 days.
You do not
3
look
weeks?
at.
I know.
don't
I
look
get
at it
away. This is
all.
why I get to do young adult ministry, because people don't think that I'm my age. I actually have grown children. My youngest is 15, but I have a 22-year-old, a 21-year-old, and a 20-year-old.
Wow.
Your age.
I know, right?
That's
Your age is
amazing.
low.
I don't know
I
if
know,
you
he's
saw
loaded.
Lori in the chat says that she saw you, Antoine, at a racial reconciliation meeting or something.
Oh,
So small
yes.
world.
Small world. I don't know. I didn't see the comment, but hopefully I was helpful, or at least not helpful.
Yeah, no, she
But-
said you
but-
sucked. I'm just kidding.
She said, "Why is this guy here?" Yeah,
Dang.
I'm just
Why
kidding.
are
She
you
did not say
doing
that. I'm just kidding.
April. Wait,
I was-
now you have to give a 5-minute apology to Antoine.
Okay,
Oh,
Antoine,
I'm just
welcome.
kidding. Lexi
No,
said she was
no,
born in
no.
99.
cool, Lori.
Okay.
Oh, Lori Turnbow. Okay, yeah, I know that name. I just looked. Now.
Okay, yeah, and she in all caps said, "I did not." She did not say that you sucked. So I apologize to
Yes.
Lori
Why
for
did you-
speaking
Well,
on
hey,
her
Lori.
behalf.
Hey,
And to
Lori,
Antoine.
how you
Yes.
doing? I know who that is now, and I'm so glad to have a familiar face. Very
Okay,
cool.
let's get into the conversation now. Now
Okay.
that we have rambled, which was great. I loved every moment
No,
of
it
it.
was good. Yeah.
Antoine.
Yes.
So you have been. I really want to hear. You can tell us a little bit about you, but I want to hear how you got involved with the Church Hurt series and kind of the response that you got from that, how that went, and then we can go into a larger conversation.
So I've been doing young adult ministry for like 9 years, and part of the young adult thing, like if you look on my ministry wall, like the first thing I write when I started was that we have to build trust, and so from one generation to the other, and so I've been kind of on the fence, like on the guard fence in a sense, looking for places that distrust has shown up, and so I've always been looking for that for like the 8 or 9 years, and so in that looking. I've just heard a lot of stories, and as we got closer to the election and to the race conversations that would happen in 2020, and I just could feel a lot of things boiling up. I'm like, man, what an opportunity for the church to own some things and take the lead in compassion and confession and compassion, right? Wow, what an opportunity to lead out in these two very significant ways.
That's right.
And so I started to sort of pursue that, and I noticed that that was not the default response of the church, as it turned out. And so I was like, wow, okay, so and so I made some propositions to churches like, hey, I think it'd be great if we just created listening spaces. And I got, it wasn't something that was very, it wasn't received really well. And I'll admit, like, this is like multiple generations. Like, older generation was worried defensively that, like, hey, we're a little afraid of what that's going to actually be, and it's going to cause bad PR. In essence, that's my interpretation. That wasn't their words. But I even talked to some other young adult pastors, and they're like, I don't know that people really want to hear other people. I think I kind of think they do. I think, like, we're all in our houses right now. We want to know we're not alone in the anxiety that we're feeling. So it turned out I was like, well, I have a ministry that I can call out of the shots on. We're a nonprofit organization, so we're not a part of a church. So I get to make a call here. I'm like, well, I think we're just going to do it. And so decided to do a sermon series on Church Hurt, which is a series of sermons that basically called the church out, and really ultimately called the church into a state of confession and compassion. But in accompanied with those sermons was some events that we wanted to put together to ask young adults and whoever else really to come and share their story, and for us to be able to just listen to it and not defend ourselves at all, but just hold what they had to say, step into their stories, and then empathize and apologize even for the role the church played in the trauma that they'd been feeling, and then commit to, hey, we as a community will try to love better. What we can control. And so that's kind of the essence of what was going on in that Church Hurt. Sort of, I'll call that one a ministry series instead of a sermon series, because we try to do several things in that season. Yeah.
That's really fascinating to me. And I had an exchange on TikTok this past week talking about, some of the crazy things that I heard as an evangelical youth pastor.
Yeah.
And then the response that I got from some certain individuals, that's not true. That's not real. You don't know what you're talking about, that kind of thing. What was it in your ministry? Because this sounds so fascinating, right? What was it in your ministry that made you say, instead of reacting in the defensive denial, which is so often the case, what was it that we're going to sit in some of these things and go, yeah, we did fall short in some places? Like, where was it that you decided to listen and to hear that and to say, we love you and we're sorry that you had that experience, and we're going to sit with that because it hurts? Like, where did you come up with that?
Yeah. So we were looking through, probably the bedrock for the series is the James 5 passage where he's talking about confessing sins to one another to produce healing. Sorry, my eyes get big. But in that James passage, he's talking about that, and it's like, wow, there's a lot of healing that needs to happen. And of course, when you look at James, you're thinking physical healing, but I think even James, despite him talking about bringing the sick and letting the anointed put their hands on them, I think there's an expanded interpretation there to say there's ailment and there's sickness inside the body of Christ. James is saying this to the church of that time.
Say that,
hey, confession to each other leads to healing. And so, well, what does confession look like in general? Sort of relationship counseling. When you sit down with a married couple, you say, hey, you don't sit down to the married couple and you say, hey, they typically come, they're like, hey, the wife, if I'm the husband, she is the problem. She's got this issue, that issue, and the other issue. And then he's like, no, she's the problem. Like she, maybe I'm getting the pronouns, but this other person has the problem. And in the counselor's job is to say, no, each of you own your stuff. And if everybody owns their stuff, then reconciliation is more likely to happen. So long as you're trying to fix the other person's stuff, it doesn't happen. So the church can we can't always fix what other people do, but we can look at what we do. And so I was calling us into this sort of counselor session, biblical spiritual practice of confession that we don't practice or preach very deeply in American church culture, because we have very pride-based culture, proud in the sense I'm a good person, I don't want to be a bad person. And so we just wanted to challenge that. And if we couldn't get the church to do it, then I'm talking to the next generation in front of me. I'm like, okay, if they won't do it, then we've got to do it. And so let's just go ahead and do it and establish that rhythm in our spiritual discipleship practice. Confession is a part of the deal. And if we don't confess, division follows. And and I don't want to see a church that's divided any more than you guys do. So that was kind of the starting place there, if you will. The import of confession, or the importance of confession to the spiritual life, and something. And last thing on all of this, leaders have the greatest opportunity to exemplify and have impact. I was talking to my daughter just earlier today, and I was like, unexpected equals impact most of the time. And typically you don't expect your leader, your spiritual leader, to apologize or confess. You expect them to be good and to protect themselves, or just to be not have problems. So when the leader shows up and says, hey, we have failed, and own that unexpected behavior produces impact, add repentance on the top of that, and then you start having real reconciliatory change, then you can build trust. And now the tougher conversations that need to be had around the Bible and reconciling what the Bible says about things we have tougher. If trust is there, we can have those conversations in good faith. If trust is absent, then those conversations sound like attacks, and we don't want the Bible to feel like an attack, So these are the sort of long game that we're trying to work through. Hope that's not too much.
So when you did, were there any other pastors that were at the events that you did that listened?
That's a good question.
No, okay. There wasn't.
Damn, seriously?
Unfortunately, yeah. One of the things I want to do is do more of those events and to invite pastors to come and be a part of that. And I want those pastors to come and be human. I gave a really ugly picture. I don't know if I told y'all. I was talking about this with my daughter earlier today, so I don't know if but the picture, I think you were sharing
with us. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But the picture is that I'm going to invite pastors to come to a session and allow people who've been traumatized and hurt to basically proverbially throw up on them, vomit on them, their trauma.
Be the punching bag.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I expect that pastor to stand up with that stench on them and to empathize with the trauma that caused that and commit to do something better as an act of love and acceptance of these brothers and sisters. And I think that can happen. If that were to happen one time, honestly, if I had my heart's desire about it, if we could do it, everybody has these grandiose ideas, right? But if you could get as many churches across the country and pastors to be willing to do this, not as a grand show, but as a true act of human humility, you begin to create unexpected impact, because no one expects the church to be able to do that. And suddenly you have an opportunity to have a conversation again with, I would say if 100 people showed up, I would say 60% of people are probably like, forget it, it's too late, right? But I'd say maybe 40% of the people would say, you know what, if they believe that was an actual change, they would listen and re-engage in church. And this whole thing isn't about getting people to come back to the church, by the way. This is just about reconciling relationship between brothers and sisters who have hurt each other. And then after that, we can solve the ministry church problem and form and format and all of that. This is just about rebuilding trust between hurt generations.
I'm glad that you said that, because I was actually going to ask, is the goal to get people back in church? Because I feel like a lot of us, when we've had, people reach out like, oh, let's get coffee, I want to hear about your new adventures, and and it ends up being like adventures. Yeah. And it's like, oh, the Lord's been laying this on my heart, but like, it's the devil laying it on yours, and it just
it's a hell.
Yeah.
April, that's so real to my life. Like, you're right.
It
Oh, I
is.
know.
No, I think all of us have had those emails. You know,
Yeah.
we're
Yeah.
agents of the enemy. Like,
Right. It's like,
because I'm
okay.
sorry. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think there's a lot of hesitation on people that have left when they hear about something like what you're doing, which I admire, by the way, because there's so many people, I would say the majority of people still in evangelical circles that are vocal are just demonizing people that have left and, saying, oh, well, they're just bitter, or they just want to live in sin, or they're ushering in the beginning of the end times, as David Jeremiah said, or, like deconstructionists were responsible for slavery. We've also gotten that one in the last few weeks. So like,
Yeah.
so it's hard. I think most of our guard is up, and I, love Jesus, and I would love to be a part of a church community again, but it would take a lot for me to have that trust. And I'm sure that there are healthy church bodies out there. I have just never been a part of one. I've been a part of churches that had good people in it.
Say that.
But I haven't been a part of a church that was actually like genuinely healthy. I haven't met one that cannot fall to the typical things that the American Evangelical Church is being called out for now. So all that to say is I'm glad that you clarified that the goal is not to get people back in the church, but just to bring reconciliation, because I do think we're so used to a bait and switch, we really want to hear your story, but it's really because I want to tell
really
you
about
all
us,
the
right?
reasons you're wrong.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
or I want you to come back to our congregation.
Right.
Yeah.
We're one of the good guys, and so show up for us. Yeah.
We need your tithe.
And that's been the thing, right? And that's the reason churches, like, there's a distinction between accepting and affirming, like with the LGBTQIA plus community, right? Like, we're cool with you showing up. Oh yeah, everybody's welcome here. And that's how churches drew a line between, we accept you or we affirm you, like we believe that you're good in the way that God created you. But man, Antoine, I think that's such a good point, in the sense that, talking about that there is reconcile that needs to happen with the evangelical church first. What is the thing that put that on your heart, though? Like, where did that come from originally?
Yeah, it's just like my life sort of mission statement for self. I'm just kind of a weird thing to say, but I think the engine that keeps me going since I was about 22 is, okay, when I was younger, I was asked, hey, well, what's the biggest problem in the world? And everyone's answer is different here on this question. So my answer isn't going to be like the answer. But for me, after I finished with it, I was like, the answer is that the influence of the church is too small, was my answer as a 20 something. And so then I was like, what are you going to, and then the next question after that, okay, so what are you going to do about that? I'm like, okay, well, I don't know. What am I going to do about that? I wasn't called into ministry at the time. but the thing on my life is, when the church flourishes, society flourishes. This is the sort of concept that's in my brain. When the true church, right? When the true church flourishes, when the kingdom of God is on earth as it is in heaven, society is the better for that. And therefore, when it's not that, society is the worst. So my engine is to pursue the sustainable influence of God's church, right? And to be on the guard against the things that would damage that influence. So that's why I'm in the racial reconciliation conversation, because that is either an opportunity or a roadblock to influence. And we're allowing it to be a roadblock right now, when it really can be an opportunity. Young adult ministry is another one. Hey, you're skipping 2 huge generations. You're just gonna not talk to them. You're gonna have to deal with what they come up with very soon. And we skipped it. And so we're in the middle of that. And this is part of that process, is how does the church survive or deal with the challenges in front of it for the long haul? How do we, and in the process of sort of trying to get ahead of that and think through that, there's a whole series of mountains to try to take. And this concept right here is one of them. Unfortunately, I didn't realize the problem was as big as it was. 2020 revealed to me that the American church in the modern day is just very, very afraid. and it is afraid of losing power and its pinnacle place in society. And their answer to this realization that we're coming up with, that maybe we're going to lose that, is to try to fight to keep it, when instead we should just learn that, hey, we're moving from summer to winter, and in the summer you get to wear shorts, in the winter you got to wear a coat. Like, adjust to the season and do what you need to do, because the things that happen in the summer won't work. Doesn't mean that summer clothes won't be good for next summer. So hold on to those strategies, and the things that worked for this season, maybe another season will come, we would have used those. But it does no one any good to lament the summer in the winter, or to ridiculously rebel the season by going out into the winter in shorts anyway. I talked to my daughter about this. I was like, the church sometimes looks like they're selling shorts in the middle of a rainfall, and someone else is over there selling umbrellas. You're like, hey, we're selling summer clothes, sunshades. Like, I don't need sunshades. It's raining right now. Why are you giving me something that doesn't apply to the situation I'm currently in? And then someone else is like, here, actually paying attention to what's going on. So I think trying to be a voice that helps the church sort of be in the, look at where it's going and what it needs to be doing, and not be afraid of dealing with these problems is really where it came from. I love God's church, Big C Church, and I want to see it flourish. And I see things that are keeping that flourishing from happening, and I want to speak into those things where I have skill to do that.
I love that seasonal analogy. And I don't know if either of you watch Game of Thrones, but Shannon in the chat said winter is coming. And now all I can imagine are a bunch of White Walkers coming after the evangelical church.
It's got to be the next opener for the next show now.
I feel like
make a video. What that means.
You don't know what it means? I feel like the deconstructionists are like, the dragon glass that can kill him. Okay, I'm getting way into the weeds on this analogy now, and y'all, I don't even know if y'all watched it. So please, someone tell me. Okay,
I have watched it. So I am walking with you, April. You are not alone.
Okay, yeah. So I'm gonna just start saying winter is coming now when I make my videos about the evangelical.
Winter is here. Winter is upon us.
Here. That's true.
If you go Lord of the Rings, war is upon you whether you choose to accept it or not. That's what Eric said.
Or Theoden, what did he say?
Yes.
It is, what do you say? It is coming? What's the thing? It's here. There's like literally a meme. I can picture his face. What does he say?
I don't remember what he says, but
the time has come or something. Whatever. Yeah. Anyway, regardless.
It is here.
Yes.
It is in front of us, and we're kind of pouting right now instead of addressing the problem.
You know what the evangelical church is? Oh my gosh, speaking of Lord of the Rings, I'm about to kill this analogy. When was it? Oh my gosh, I'm tired, so please. Theoden, when he was possessed before Gandalf cast Sauron.
Yes, you shut up past that guy.
Gandalf, but when the king that was possessed.
Oh yeah.
And was pretending that there was no war, and like they were trying to be like, you're like, your son's just died, and he was like, because he was possessed. That is the evangelical church right now, trying to be like, a war is upon you, and they're acting like, no, there's nothing. Wormtongue, yes,
Wormtongue. That was him. Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
And some people are doing that, and some people are just like fighting the wrong battle. Like they went to war but this isn't the right war. You're fighting the wrong thing. Like this isn't. You're very militant, and I feel that, but that's not what's actually attacking you.
Jeremy, have you not seen Lord of the Rings?
Yes, I tried to help you. We went from Harry Potter to
Game of Thrones.
And I thought surely Lord of the Rings would be, as a student pastor, I figured like Frodo and Sam Gamgee is money for student ministry.
Have you really not seen Lord of the Rings, Jeremy?
I've watched parts.
Parts? Okay.
I'm sorry.
Right.
I haven't read it. I've watched parts.
I feel like we have work to do with Jeremy where it comes to
I don't know how to feel about this.
I'm just inviting myself into your intervention on movies. Like we're going to do a 12-hour intervention.
Listen,
all three.
My wife is a huge like Harry Potter fan, Lord of the Rings fan. Like she loves all of it. And I just like, I'm like, babe, I'm going to watch a documentary. Like
Get out of here.
Absolutely.
Get out of
By the
here.
way, this is kind of the most Gen X. Like I think Gen Z's like, of course they're talking about Harry Potter, and they're like, we're like right in the tropes now, you know. Whatever. We're so on
oh
spiritual
man, I
brand.
feel so bad.
You should feel bad. And Jeremy, just to let y'all know, here's a little fun fact about April. But Lord of the Rings are my absolute favorite movies of all time. Like,
wow, really?
by far. Like, I
Wow.
saw the
Okay,
first
so-
movie 7 times in the theaters. I am a diehard fan.
I have to admit, I went into that first movie thinking I'm not going to like this, and that time went by really quick when I first watched.
So
I said,
fast.
wow, that was
Me
3
too.
hours. Now, and then we can get off of the Lord of the Rings things, but I really like Lord of the Rings too. But the third movie, did you feel like the movie ended 7 times? Like it felt like he wrote 7 endings, and he's just like, we're just going to do all 7 of the.
Well,
endings of the movie
did you read the
back
book?
to back to back.
Did you
to
read the
back to
books?
back.
Because they're actually.
I did not read the book.
So there's like more endings in the book. There's like this whole like extra narrative where they go back to the Shire and it's
There's more to
overrun
it.
by
Wow.
orcs and they got to fight off the orcs. Like it would have been too much. It was too much. But I loved every single ending of it because I just wanted to live in Middle Earth, and I cried at the end because it was
I
over.
know what we're talking about.
April, the elven princess. Speaking of, my daughter came through last night. She's like, she did done her hair differently. She's like, I want to be Legolas, and so she done her hair like a Legolas thing. Anyway, okay, we're off of it. We gotta get off.
I had a cardboard cutout, life size, of Legolas in my room in high school.
She was
and I
like,
may or may not have kissed it. Like
I know, I'm
many
about to say,
times.
my daughter, she was probably 8 or 9, and she's like, when she first saw him, she was like, he is so pretty.
He is a
That was
beautiful
hilarious.
man. A
He's
beautiful
like, he
man.
is pretty. Anyway, whatever. All right.
Okay.
April, real quick. Your husband asked if I'd seen Star Wars.
Have you?
I have seen all the Star Wars movies.
It is the only reference we have not made. Let's see if we can get
Including
it.
Rogue One. I am a huge Star Wars fan.
Okay.
Mhm.
I
all right.
love
All right.
Star Wars.
I have
So
R2D2. like,
rest
where is
easy, friends. That's
Right
a
there.
fair question. I love Star Wars.
Okay. All right. So you're on Star Wars. So you've got
Star
one
Wars.
weird fan thing.
And Star Trek. I like Star Trek.
Okay. Okay. You like Star Trek.
And that's where I fell off. That's where I fell off. I can't. I'm with all of it in this Star Trek. Unfortunately, I can't have it. I can't do it.
Peter just said, okay, my husband is in the chat and he just said, I sometimes role play as Legolas for April. And I just want to say he has never done that.
Don't lie.
I know.
Don't you lie. He
I think it's
shared it.
hilarious.
Yeah.
But what I think that's a promise, is what that is. That's
Yeah,
him.
maybe that's a vow.
Antoine. He said
Oh
that's
my
a
gosh.
promise.
Okay. All right. Well, let's roll to a mid roll and then we can talk. Oh, my brother's in the chat and just went, ew. Okay. Okay, this went real. Okay. We're going to go to a mid roll and then we'll come back and try to bring this back to, I don't know, whatever this is. Okay. Go what? That's the stream. Oh, no, we're back. No, go back. Go away.
Evangelical-ish. Follow us to catch all the latest content and encouragement. You can check us out on TikTok by following @Evangelicalish or subscribe on YouTube by searching Evangelicalish. That's Evangelical with an ISH. And don't forget to catch our live streams each and every single Wednesday night on YouTube at 9 Eastern, 8 Central, and 6 Pacific. And now back to the Evangelicalish podcast.
I cannot tell you guys how much I am blushing right now. I just
We
needed a
can't tell.
mid-roll.
I knew that we can do this.
Okay, I can do that too.
Yeah. Wow,
That's fine.
Did you play basketball, April?
I did. I played in
Those
college,
those
actually.
basketball hands right there.
Yeah,
I know a good basketball hand when I see one.
I'm
Here's the
double
crazy-
jointed.
Here's the
My
crazy
hand.
thing is that Antoine is that we were talking one day and I figured out that I'm the shortest person on the Evangelicalish podcast.
hmm And I'm the tallest.
Oh yeah.
Is that right?
Because
What
I
did
think
Paul say?
Paul,
You
I
know
think
what?
Paul
I think-
said he was like 5'9".
I think I
I
listened
thought
to
he
that
said he was
episode. I
5'11".
think I remember that.
Was he
But
5'11"?
you're 6 foot, right?
I am, so I'm still taller.
You're taller than me. I'm 5'9".
That laugh.
I
But
know.
I still get dunked. But you still get dunked on. Mess with me. I don't care. I can't dunk.
Antoine.
I'm just making up stuff. I can touch the rim.
This is like a total like
Can
just
you still?
I can I can still do it as I'm
That's
42.
good.
Touch the rim.
And the last
today.
time I was out there, which was like 6 weeks ago, I always try it. And I can
And you
still
can still get it?
I can still touch the rim. Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Yeah, I can get 2 fingers on it. I can.
Bro.
That's pretty good. I cannot. I've lost. I didn't really have ups to begin with, but whatever I had,
Could
gone.
you ever touch the rim, April?
I think so. Like barely. I could dunk
That's
on an
me too.
8-foot basket.
I'm gonna say
not
or
a 10-foot basket.
dunk a tennis ball or something like that. That's the
Yeah.
at the highest I was able to get. I could dunk a tennis ball.
I'm
Mm.
5'8" and a half. I could
half
dunk a tennis
matters.
ball. I could yeah, it does.
Oh,
I could
that's
dunk
good.
a tennis ball in high school. And then when I got to college, like after the baseball team put a bunch of like, so that was a whole story, but we won't get into it. But I could still touch the rim. I haven't been able to touch the rim probably in 5 or 6 years.
Mm.
Let it be what it is.
Man, it's okay, man. It's all
It's
right.
my goal. It's my goal.
There's nothing.
I'm gonna get
There's
back
nothing
there.
we. All it tells us is
I'm
that
gonna
we
get back
just
up there.
will never dunk that. You know, because it's not going to go higher. It's just going to go lower. So just
Yeah.
it's now
Right.
just an acceptance.
But
Well,
April's gonna dunk on both of us. Just
I cannot dunk anymore. Whatever. My kids just
she
killed
said
my drive.
anymore.
I know.
No,
that
was the weird.
You're a hustle waiting to happen. We just go out there, April's like having fun, making everybody laugh, and then all of a sudden check ball, and then it's just you don't even get a chance to shoot. You're like, oh gosh.
Yeah. No.
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
that is the fun thing. I'm pretty thin now because my girls like sucked the life out of me when I nursed them. And so, I mean, I've always been really thin, but I played intramurals with their college team on like the staff team at like a couple years ago in between children. And it was in the men's league because I always played in the men's league. And it was fun because people are like, oh, I'll guard the girl. And then it's like, swoosh. That's my favorite thing. Like right after they're like, oh, I don't want to guard a girl. And then
pickup basketball is the analogy I use when I have to deal with intersectionality conversations. Unfortunately, I use female basketball players in that conversation often to help people understand how normal it is that people could have disadvantage in have perceived disadvantage in multiple ways. Anyway, that's neither here nor there.
That was it. So that's a really good point because April, like, so when I taught middle school and coached middle school football, we used to get a bunch of coaches together to play basketball, like during the breaks or whatever, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a girl there she was our volleyball coach, but she was a collegiate basketball player, and she just ran circles around everybody else. Like she just straight hustle beat everybody else. Like it was
it is fun. It is fun to make like grown men like cry a little bit. And they're like,
every dude that like guarded her, that was the thing, is like she's built a lot like you. So like every dude that guarded her was like, number one, they were like outsized automatically, like because a lot of us were like average guy size, like 5'9", 5'10", whatever. But then like she just was like, so they started calling her Jackrabbit because she just like would not stand still. And so like with dudes, you can like, you know, try to like get in passing lanes or whatever. She just like would never stop moving. You were like, oh my God, like,
oh my goodness,
slow down. You know,
I love it. I will say,
good.
just like as a complete sidebar, and then we can move on to whatever we're doing. It was very odd. I don't like men need to figure out what this is about them, but I would say like that any guy that was semi-athletic or competitive in like high school and college that I would meet, and they would find out that I played college basketball, or even like after college, would immediately like be like, "Oh, I bet I could take you. We should play one-on-one."
That's stupid.
Like, why? It's like so weird looking back, like how many guys like just wanted to play me one-on-one when they found out I played basketball. Just like, oh, I could take you.
Did you play? So not that this is relevant to the whole thing, but did you play all 4 years?
Oh, okay. Now we're getting into the story of my college basketball career, which is long, but
Is there some weeds?
I played 1 year at Evangel University in Missouri,
Yeah,
and then I
yeah.
transferred and I played at Southwestern Assemblies of God University and hated the school. It was like super strict and very Pentecostal, but the team was cool. But anyway, so then I transferred and went to DBU, Dallas Baptist,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
they were way more chill, the Baptists, and at least there. But they didn't have a women's team, so I tried out and played for. I played like semi-pro for a year or two just because I wanted to keep playing and I wasn't done. But so I only played
Stop.
2 years of college.
April, stop saying that like it's no big deal. Yeah, I just I
Hey, that's how you have to say it, Jeremy. Like, what do you want her to do? Come in and say, "Look, I'm a pro ball player."
Yeah, I'm not trying
I
to.
mean, kind of, because that's how dudes would walk. Antoine.
True,
That's how
true,
dudes walk in
true.
the
They
room
just
like-
have their jersey on under their shirt, and so they would just flash
Yeah,
it just for a
yeah,
second, just in
yeah.
case you need to see that jersey.
Yeah,
Yes.
that actually is true. Beecher and my husband made this point, but our very first time one-on-one, this was not a date, but our first time ever hanging out alone without other friends, we played one-on-one basketball.
This is loving basketball. Only
I mean,
not
basketball
the Vipers.
Jones.
Yeah. Okay,
Basketball.
well, is there anything that we want to talk about on the topic before?
Yes.
Okay,
Not basketball.
yeah, not basketball.
Good.
That was
All
a
right.
total tangent.
Okay, sorry.
Although it
But
was
I
a fun
enjoyed it. It
tangent.
was
I
fun.
did as
Yes.
well. Okay, where do we go from here? Because Antoine, I feel like you are where we were at some, not like, oh, we're ahead of you. I don't mean that like condescendingly, but I think like, well, you might be ahead because let me start over. I feel like a lot of us have tried to change it from within and tried to get the church to listen and fail.
That's my question.
And
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
why we are like, well, screw y'all, like I think for me, I've okay, maybe not Jeremy. For me, I'm pretty much to the point where I've given up hope on the evangelical church at this point. Like I don't see them listening like as a whole. So like with your experience, sorry, Jeremy, you can go ahead.
No. I definitely finished that thought. For sure. I was just thinking, is it screw the evangelical church? Well, is it screw the church or screw the evangelical church? Because I think those are like.
Well, that's why. Did I not say evangelical church?
Maybe you did.
I think so.
Maybe
Okay.
you
Well,
did.
and I want to
Yeah.
specify too. I think it's
It's an
specifically
important
like
distinction.
white evangelical church. Like there's like
Yeah.
to make that distinction, because that's my background and that's where I feel like, and I'm sure like there's other churches that have issues as well, but it's like white evangelical spaces that don't seem to want to listen, and whether it's a power thing or whether it's indoctrination, groupthink, which I think it is a lot of those things as well, but like the institutional evangelical church that has the power, it's a power structure in our country.
Yeah.
I feel like there's been plenty of people that have sounded the alarms over the years, and there's literally thousands, maybe millions of people sounding the alarms now, because I do think that deconstruction, exvangelical, whatever you want to call it, is a movement of people saying like, I want to follow Jesus, and I can't do that. I cannot authentically love like Jesus wants me to love within these evangelical spaces. Like for me, which the pandemic did it for me. I was going to church regularly, and then the pandemic kind of naturally was a stop. And then I just saw so much crap between COVID and Trump and nationalism and misogyny and assaults and all of these things. And the church just wanted to cover it up or demonize the people that brought it to light, or both. And I don't see an authentic, genuine desire of that institution to want to listen and want to change. So have you seen something that would say that perspective is wrong?
It certainly is trending the wrong direction currently.
Mm-hmm.
And so
good point.
it makes a ton of sense to, there's so many things to say with what we're saying. So I want to condense maybe, but the relationship with the church feels like a abusive relationship. You're saying it earlier, I think. I think it was the thing that where I noticed you. You talk about where you noticed me. Where I noticed you was on TikTok, where you had that one something about barely holding on. I can't remember, but the jingle.
Oh,
You know,
Christian, but I'm barely hanging on.
Christian,
Oh,
but I'm
clap.
barely hanging on. Clap,
Yeah.
clap.
I
Yes,
love that one, by the way.
and it's because I think it felt and feels so spot on to people who love God's church, but it's like,
Mm.
what are we doing? And feel so disrupted by what and unproud of what the church is doing. And it seems so obvious to us that this is the wrong way. How is it that this is even a difficult conversation to have? So it feels like a toxic relationship where you like a husband and a wife, for instance, and you've really trusted your spouse, and then one day you found out your spouse is not who they said they were.
That's a good way to put it.
Even though you've been married maybe 4 years, and suddenly you realize, wow, there's another context that helps me see everything that I've experienced in a different light that isn't flattering. And now I don't know how to interpret everything I'm seeing, whether it's good or bad. The trust is completely gone. And then because of that, there's hard investment. It's one thing that hard investment causes a kind of heartbreak. And so I would say that there are people like, don't let me speak for you guys. I don't, let me speak for myself. Because I am here. I would say that I am heartbroken by the church. Now, to me, that is the word that I would characterize. It feels like a breakup. I feel all the things that I felt when I was suddenly broken up with by someone I thought I was going to be in a relationship in a long time, that I trusted as a good person, that suddenly just wasn't, and I was missing it, and that caused me to into this tailspin. I think that that's there, and we can acknowledge that. The hope that I have, however, is that the next generation, there's a generation that's, I don't mean this in the wrong way. Let me see, how can I say it without being crass? But they're about to move on to glory. And and this new generation is coming. So whatever you think about the institutional church and what's been established, it doesn't have to be that way for the next generation. The institutional church, whatever it is, flaws and all, the things that are currently seeming to hold those flaws in place is a very invested, defensive, afraid boomer generation that has power, money, influence, and all the things. So
Yeah.
nature, God, I'm not but eventually the baton, they have to drop the baton. And the next generation will have to pick it up, and we're going to have to pick it up and deal with what church looks like regardless. And it's going to be organized in some way. It can't be unorganized. So it's going to be organized. It's going to get his Paul. Everyone says to go back to Acts 2. We're going to be an Acts 2 house church. I'm like, Paul wrote most of the letters to the small churches on how to deal with getting bigger. That's part of the whole thing. So I don't know that we can be completely satisfied with a small thing. The nature of it is that it's going to get bigger, and growth produces challenges and threats. There's forbidden fruit in every garden. So we just have to be worried about those things. So for me, there's hope in saying, how do we get the next generation to guard the proper things of the scripture, point out or learn from the failures of a previous generation, all while honoring what God has done through them? I'll say this last thing. I was just did a sermon last night on David and Saul, and in First and Second Samuel, David takes over and gets the news that Saul has died, and the whole point of that is that it's a lie. But the thing is that David honors Saul, even though Saul is a terrible king, hypocritical, spiritually unfit, not a model for David at all, and yet he honors that. He honors Saul's anointing in that, and I think there's something in that. In We're the David potentially of a new generation that comes in with power and influence to change what's coming next. And there's room to honor even what God has done in the previous generation, but not be like that. David doesn't look like Saul. He doesn't lead like Saul, but he does honor what God did through Saul. So there's room to honor what's happened, recognize the issues, point them out, not get too crazy about it, and then figure out what the next move is forward. And that's kind of why I say there's room still to make change. And so I'm sort of fighting for that, even though it, it's very mentally taxing.
I feel like that's like you're playing
and
the long
and
game.
emotionally taxing. Yes. So it is more of a 401k game.
Yeah. We do have Marsha in the chat is a boomer, and she said, so I need to die. And I don't want her to feel bad, because I don't think that was what you were saying.
No, that's not what I meant. And that's why I want to be real careful about that. What I really mean is the sort of generational influence. So I obviously, again, that's the same thing. Paul, no, I did that last night. David lamented the death of Saul. He didn't celebrate it. It wasn't like, yay, he's finally gone. Now we get to do it the right way. No, the whole surprise of that thing is that he lamented that. And so I'm not at all saying that the generation needs to die. I'm just making the point that eventually the influential baton of God's church will move from one generation to the next, and we're right on the cusp of that. And that affords us an opportunity to evaluate and to adjust things that could be evaluated and adjusted, and to create new forms of ministry while redeeming old forms at the same time.
Yeah. I think that's an interesting, kudos to you if you can stick it out until the change happens. Because I think a lot of us have tried to stick it out, and that's why.
Well, and here's the thing, like, it's going to hurt us, like, because we're standing. Well, for me, I feel often I'm in the middle of the conversation. So I'll say something that will maybe be offensive to one side and to the other side, because I'm really trying to bridge these two things together and kind of call everyone to the sort of middle. And in the process of that, man, I've lost funding, and like, I've got my horror stories of stuff that has put my family in really tough positions.
Say that.
Because this is something I believe in, fighting for. And so there's a cost associated, but I'll say this: love has cost, has sacrifice. There's no version of true love that I can think of that doesn't include sacrifice. Like, try to marriage, parenting, good friends, like, all versions of true love means I give something of myself. So if I'm not doing that, then it causes me to question whether I'm actually acting in any sort of true love, and not my extra stuff. By the way, it's not this Americanized word of charity, which is extra. Charity is supposed to be about the essence. That means I give away what I need, not what I don't need anymore. And so once we really get into what love means and sacrifice, then we start asking ourselves, what does it mean to lay down our lives for our friends, like Jesus said, commanded us to do? And and that should cause us to challenge ourselves, us being the church in that concept, the church leadership as a whole, and maybe even us individually, So I don't get so box with that.
No, I think it's very fascinating, because you are a diamond in the rough. I feel that, and I think what you're doing is noble, and I think for so many of us, we want to be heard. I think if we could get these evangelical churches and the power structure to actually listen and to be held accountable for some things that are just truly atrocious, I think that's what we want. We want accountability. We want to be heard, and we want, a lot of us have lost our communities and our families, and there's a lot of grief. It's not like, it's not like we chose this lightly at all. And I think in a perfect world, we could still have those communities, but it be healthy, and it really showcase God's love and the love of Christ. And that, I haven't seen that coming from the church. Like, for me, at least where I am now, and this could change, if more people like you within the evangelical spaces, actually get to these pastors, and there's a lot of them. And I think so much of it, because I have spoken to some pastors about this, and I feel like one pastor in particular, his heart was in the right place, but his hands were tied, because of people in the church who was giving the money,
Yeah.
you know, outside pressure, you know. And so it's finding these people to stand up, but knowing that like they could lose everything. Like Jeremy is a perfect example of, he just, you know, he had to step down from his job as a pastor just a few weeks ago because of speaking out on these issues. So, you know, I think if there's a way to do reconciliation, like that's great. I don't know that I'm as much of a believer in it as you. I kind of feel like it needs to all burn down and start over in house churches and all that. But, you know, I think it's
Well,
worth the conversation.
And we were talking about this earlier too, as well. Like, you know, John the Baptist was the original deconstructionist. He's like, hey, Pharisees, the axe is at the root. What you're doing needs to be cut down. And Jesus quotes his brood of vipers in his Matthew 23. And Jesus says his own deconstruction statement. He said, listen, the temple as it currently stands, I'm going to destroy and rebuild it in 3 days into a new and different thing that honors the old, but brings us into the next, you know. And so there's something about I think Jesus and John the Baptist would attest to this sort of spirit of testing the religious the religious norm.
Yeah.
We could call it deconstructing. It really is deconstructing by definition, though. Like, it literally is, like, when you're going to cut down a tree, like, that tree is no more, you know. So it's literally tearing a tree down and burning it into a fire. That's what he says in that passage. So I think there is some room. Some things do need to be burned. Some best practices need to be removed, and there's a lot that needs to be whipped out of the church, if you will. But but trying to figure out how what it all looks like is more nuanced, and to me and it's so multifaceted and multi-tiered that I'm not ready to make any real large moves, other than to say, okay, here's a little bit, we got to work on this problem, and then if we can get that, then we can begin to work on this one and this one. And man, if we can just get churches to truly evaluate. I'll say this, and I know, Jeremy, I'd love to hear some of your thoughts, but someone asked me just recently, hey, if you could get all the pastors in a room, what would you tell them? And I would say, I would ask them to evaluate a very simple question. Where do you think the church is in this mission? If we look at the parable about the talents, and God's like, hey, I gave you 10 talents, and what did you do with them? The American church has if I'm a boss, I'm coming to American church as a whole, and I'm saying, what else do you need from me to to make the difference you need to make? You got power, you got money, you got talent, you got people, you're spread across the country. Yeah, like, what else do you need? And at some point, God says, well, I'm going to take that influence from them, and I'm going to give it to someone else who's giving me a return, the proper return on the things I've given them. I feel like America is having its talents taken away because we didn't do enough with our 10. And it's just a managerial decision on some level. Like, you're just not doing it. In fact, you're making it worse. And then we're rebelling now, and we're calling out the wrong problem instead of looking at it.
No, that's really good. So I don't know if you guys we had mentioned that we were going to do a fun little Q&A since we are past an hour now. So if y'all have a fun question, like we did last time, nothing deep or personal. And while y'all are thinking of a couple questions that we can have time, Antoine, where can people find you? Someone asked for your social media handles. Like what your website, like give us all the deets.
Yeah. So if you can spell my name, we can be friends. That's what I say. So my name is on the screen there, Antwuan, but almost everything you want to find me personally, you can find at Antwuan Malone. So TikTok, I just started making some YouTube videos, although currently I'm dealing with a lot of racial reconciliation conversations there and trying to bat down so YouTube channel, and then Facebook. I have a Facebook page as well. So those are the places where you can find me. And then I have a website, again, AntouanMalone.com. And, I'm available to come, and I love to come and chat and talk with churches. I just speak and host conversations. I also I'm on a podcast with a friend of mine as a part of a threaded conversation with the racial reconciliation stuff. And that podcast is called Colored Commentary. And so it will talk
Awesome.
about Christianity, culture, and race. And so if you're interested in that, those are the spaces where I am, and we get to have more conversations, kind of like this, only not race. I mean, not evangelical stuff, but
Yeah.
race stuff. But I think all the conversations are the same. Repent, confession, and forgiveness are the key elements of all of these conversations.
Mm-hmm.
So if we can get there, then we're good.
Yeah. And there's definitely some crossover as well. Like a lot of people are ex-evangelicals because of the racism.
Yeah.
That runs very deep.
It's a love question. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So we've got a couple questions. Are you guys on Berries and Cream TikTok? And okay.
Are we what?
Okay. I know what this means because I don't know where it originated, but I've seen Berries and Cream being like some guy, whatever he's saying, being put in like songs on TikTok, but I don't know enough about it. So I think I am on Berries and Cream TikTok because it's been on my For You page, but I don't understand it. I have not seen whatever original video it came from. So I'm confused. And by y'all, the look on y'all's faces, I don't think you have any idea what I'm talking about.
I have too many references to Berries and Cream.
Yeah.
Most of them not what I want to be seeing on TikTok.
Okay. So. All right. Lori asks, favorite 80s song, and since Antoine is old enough to have one.
Hey, okay, so favorite 80s song.
That's messed up though, Lori.
Hey, I'm old enough. Hey, I'm cool with it. So we can go with, you know what? One of my favorites, it's hard to say one favorite. Mm-hmm. It's Michael Jackson. Michael Jackson is all about the 80s, right? So it's, what's the name of the actual song? Is it Leave Me Alone? I think it's called Leave Me Alone.
Sing it.
Can you still listen to Michael Jackson?
Can I?
Like, can you still, after all the, I don't know if you saw the documentary that came out. It's hard. I just can't. It's hard for me. Even though the music is good. I mean,
so
this is not it.
If it comes on, so here's the deal. Michael Jackson's in my iPad playlist. iPod. Wait.
Yeah.
What's it? iPod? The phone, the music one, right? From way back in the day. I still have one, right? And so I just have it in my, and I just hit random. I always do random. I never pick my songs. Okay. And so it'll come on. But it is in my 5-star. I really like this song thing. And that song, Don't Just Leave Me Alone. That song, Leave Me Alone. Leave Me Alone. Mm-hmm. That song, that's the one. I don't know why I get so hyped at that song, but I do. So it's a weird choice, but if I want to be a little more safe, then I would probably say 80 songs. I would probably say, wow, it's hard. I think I'd have to stick with that one. That's the one that comes to mind.
That's good. I don't really know like the names of 80 songs. So
did we lose April?
Yeah, she froze.
She doesn't.
So I'm just going to say the one that popped in my head. Hello, can y'all hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
You're back.
Can y'all hear me? Because I could still hear y'all.
Okay. You're back now.
I'm just going to have to say the one that popped in my head, which is Take On Me. Take Me On. I don't know. Take on me.
The build-up song.
Yeah, and then it like me on. Yeah. Oh, Total Eclipse of the Heart. Beecher said, I do love that song.
Hey, you're going to get copyright. You're going to get copyrighted, Jeremy.
Yes, I do love that song too.
That's my favorite 80s song.
That is a good one.
But to be honest, my favorite version of that song is Total Eclipse of the Heart. That's really good.
I actually do love that song.
Yeah, it is good.
We did a youth group drama to that song. This is a total side. No, to Total Eclipse of the Heart. It'd be like, and then they would like turn around. It'd be like the next sin to tempt you.
Oh,
I
man.
feel like April has a treasure trove of drama, like story, things that you've done. We should just you guys should do a whole show of just like
April's drama stories.
Yes.
Oh my God, so many of them.
I feel like that would be
my favorite version of that song, though.
Hey,
my favorite version of that song, though, is the Reliant K version of that song.
Reliant K has a version of that song?
Yes, they had 2 albums. K is for
Hmm.
karaoke, and they did a bunch of covers, which the best covers on those 2 albums were Africa by Toto, which
That's a
they
good one.
killed it. They killed it. And then the second one was which is a 90s song, which is one of my favorite 90s songs, was One Headlight by who was the band? Anyway, One Headlight. It was really good.
Hmm.
It was
So,
really, really
does Boyz II Men, are they 80s or 90s?
90s.
I think of them more 90s,
90s.
aren't they? I mean, they
Definitely
maybe
90s.
can't. Yeah, Boyz II Men's good too.
Maybe
My
maybe
favorite
Cooley,
boy
maybe
band
Cooley
from the
High
90s.
Harmony. Maybe that first one might be late 80s. I don't know.
Well,
I don't know.
if we're gonna get like real technical like that,
Yeah,
then
that's
we could
90s
say-
R&B. Yeah,
Then
that's
we could
90s
say
R&B.
then we
Yeah.
could say DC Talk is the 80s because the
Mhm.
DC Talk original album came out in like 88,
Uh,
Good old
which had,
DC Talk.
Heaven Bound on it. Don't you know I'm heaven bound?
See, here's
Yeah.
the thing. Like you said all the songs you've said, I have no idea about. I've smiled through them, but I have
You
no
don't
idea
know about DC
any of
Talk?
them. None of the. I know about DC Talk, but I know the name DC Talk. I don't
Oh
know any
no,
songs by
that's
them. This
No,
is my
see,
version.
so that's the difference between 78 and 88.
This is it. This is it.
Bro.
And my parents and yours, I guess, because they're like, hey, you can't listen to any of that stuff. You know,
The Wallflowers.
not that it was
it.
bad,
Hmm.
but that's what they were doing.
You know
to
what's so
me.
interesting? My parents actually originally we were not allowed to listen to DC Talk because it was like rock music, and they're like, you can't feel the spirit of the
Oh,
Lord through
yeah.
that.
My parents.
But then they eventually were like, everyone,
Yeah.
they're like, yeah, that's fine.
My
We're not going to be
parents-
strict on that.
My parents didn't have any problems with DC Talk. They had issues with POD.
POD.
So the
Mhm.
thing that I was listening to, like,
Antoine doesn't know what we're talking about. He has no
The-
clue.
I
That's
was
okay
listening to
though. I'm
POD.
gonna let y'all rock that. Y'all enjoy it.
Okay, we'll do one more question, and then we'll call it a night.
Okay.
Okay.
This do you guys both play? Have y'all played basketball?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I feel like we did. I just couldn't remember. Okay, Beecher asked, "What basketball player do you model your game after?"
Mm.
Ooh.
Okay.
Ooh.
So younger me, and
Mhm.
therefore it kind of bled in is Isaiah Thomas.
Mm.
I was a big Isaiah Thomas fan,
Hey.
and I wanted to play like Isaiah Thomas, and so I wanted to be this really great ball handling point guard who could drive the basket, score inside, and hit the mid range jumper. So I tried to do that for most of my
I like
deal, and then I forsook Isaiah after the walkout
said
on.
Mm.
That's right. Yeah, Isaiah was forsaken, and so we forsook him, and we followed Mr. MJ.
Okay.
Mm.
Okay.
But I never patterned my game
Classic.
after him. And then after he was gone, Kobe Bryant is my guy. That's my
Dude,
favorite.
Kobe.
ever. So
Mm.
that's my guy. So if I
Mm.
could, it would be him.
I just
Which I
got
know this-
sad.
I know. I was going into
I-
a meeting when we got the news, and
Ooh.
everybody knows I'm a big Kobe fan. And I was like, "Are we gonna do this meeting?" Oh, actually, I was able to power through the meeting, and I went in and said, "Hey, I think Kobe just passed away in a helicopter. So we're gonna do this meeting, and then I want to talk about that after." And they were like, "No way!" I was in a young adult, ministry meeting, and they're like, "Can't even concentrate." And we had like all this
Yeah.
stuff to do, and they're like, one girl in there, she's like, "I can't concentrate. I'm just on." She's just on her phone all the time.
I didn't even really get to grieve Kobe because then COVID happened like so quickly, and it was like,
Oh.
I guess we have to move on.
You have
It
to
was just
move on.
tragic.
The thing about Kobe is
Mm.
he showed such great whatever as far as tenacity. I love people who maximize themselves. I'm just attracted to that.
Yeah.
And so that's what's attractive to me about Kobe, is that
Yeah.
he just wanted to he just pursued it. And it was really cool to see him walk away from that in a healthy way and
Yeah.
start to be at home. Because I know that other thing of mom and kids are like, dad's never here, and so he was there now, and it made him so much more human, so much like a regular person, and I was just really enjoying seeing him do that, and to have that taken, it was particularly heartbreaking.
Checked up.
Yeah. It wasn't about the game at all. It wasn't like about his career that made me very sad. It was that concept that he was finally at home
Yes.
and
Yes.
being a father to,
Yes.
not that he wasn't doing it before, but more present at home.
Right.
And yeah, and then
I
that
know.
happened. So that was tough.
He also won an Academy Award
I
for a
know.
short
I
film.
saw
Like
that
he's
Oscar.
yeah, that's a big deal. Okay, well, rest in peace, Kobe.
Yeah, absolutely.
Who's your player, Jeremy?
That was brutal. I was
Mhm.
just gonna say that was brutal.
Yeah.
Because also like the thing that he was doing like after his career was like he was doing like a highlight thing for ESPN, and it was just really good to like see how his brain worked. And I was coaching basketball at the time. And it was just so crazy to like see how his basketball brain worked. It was like, next
Mhm.
5 levels. Like you couldn't even, like, there was like a college player, there was an NBA player, and then there was like an all-star player, and then there was Kobe. Like he just had like a
Mhm.
whole nother understanding of the game, and you just saw that like on some of the stuff that he put out at the time. So but it was good. It was good to see him to be a dad and husband and be
Yeah.
super engulfed in that. So my guy was always like John Stockton, which was like
That checks out. I see that.
Yeah. So
respect them.
or like Jason Kidd. I really like Jason Kidd's game because I was never a scorer. So I was always a guy who was like looking for fancy ways to like make everybody else look good. And so I was like a huge Jason Kidd fan.
Jason Kidd's pretty high on the 3-pointers made list though. Surprisingly,
dude.
high.
I mean, Jason Kidd, but then like also
threes.
just like a facilitator, like really
that's
good.
what he was known for.
But then like I also, my childhood like hero, and this is going to sound ridiculous, was AI. Like I was an Allen Iverson guy. I was never a scorer like that. Like I like Jason Kidd because I could form my game that way. Like, like I could be a facilitator. Like I was never a shooter or whatever, but I just loved Allen Iverson. And when he stepped over, like
Tyronn Lue.
Tyronn Lue. He just like walked over Ty Lue in the finals.
Why you doing like that, man? Dang. Tyron's got championships now, and he's best known for being stepped over. Still,
I mean,
never
I'm saying, and I had some AIs like in middle school. Like I'm not even in front. Like I had some AIs. I was a big fan.
Did you braid your hair though? That's the real question.
Bro.
Don't do it, Jeremy. I'm glad it was wise. It was a wise decision.
Yeah,
it's a wise decision.
Okay. Well, I'm going to tell y'all my player now, and Dirk Nowitzki, obviously.
That's solid.
I also wanted to marry him. So it was like I want my game to be like this man because he's amazing, and I also want to have his babies.
Yes, I want little dicks.
What's up next?
Wait a minute, be careful there. Yeah,
babies.
Yeah, but no,
that's cool.
No, I met Dirk when I was 13, and it's like so cringe. Like when I tell you, like this big crush happened when I was 13 and 14, and we've lost some people who have no idea who we're talking about. So Dirk Nowitzki is a 7-footer from Germany who was on the Dallas Mavericks, and I was also a huge Dallas Mavericks fan because I'm originally from Dallas.
Are you still a Mavericks fan?
I am. I'm actually wearing a Mavericks shirt right now.
You gotta be. I
wasn't planning it.
Yeah,
I am a Luka fan. You can't see the Mavericks, but there's Mavericks logo. Anyway,
yeah, that's awesome.
I met Dirk Nowitzki when I was 13, and I have this picture of me, and I totally looked like a boy back then. I had like awful bangs that like were like half down my forehead, and they curled and were awful. I had braces, and I was wearing this like baby blue princess jacket, and I like look like I've made it. I'm gonna score him. Like in my head, I was like, he's in love with me now.
This is it.
I still have that picture and just laugh because I look hideous and I'm 13 and like here I am with this NBA player like thinking somehow it's a match made in heaven. But anyway,
that's hilarious. Sounds like Beach Squad.
Beach Squad is my husband in the chat.
I know. Yes, I'm just going by the name, but I caught it. I have picked it up, but sounds like he's made a secondary promise today.
I know. Okay, for those that can't see the chat, he just said sometimes I role play as Dirk as well, and I will just say he does not. That's never happened.
Don't lie to us. Don't you
It's
lie to
okay.
us.
There's a special box with Dirk's jersey on it in it that is only used for special occasions, and we.
Oh my
Antoine,
gosh.
you were not lying, my brother.
I did actually buy him a Dirk jersey, like one of our first
You
Christmases.
sure did. You
I
sure
was
did.
like, I'm converting him. We had to do this whole.
I feel like if I were him, I don't want your Dirk jersey. You ought to take that back. After having your little crush and your man crush, you're not. I'm not Dirk, dog, and it never will be. You're gonna take this back to the store.
My
and
cheeks are
release it. I no longer want to be a part of this fantasy.
Antoine.
Oh my gosh. No, so he's originally from Georgia and I'm from Texas. And so when we got married, we
Is he
literally,
really? I didn't know that, I guess.
we had to trade sports teams because we wanted to support each other. So I gave up the Texas Rangers to become a Braves fan. Like I still root for the Rangers. Like it's like here, my husband just came in and threw me the jersey that I bought him.
There it is.
He's about to burn it.
That's right. That's right. That's right. You do that, sir.
Yeah. So anyway, so awkward. He's like listening back there. Anyway, so he gave up the Hawks to become a Mavs fan. That was like our trade. So
that's
not
what
a
love's
good-
all about.
And for the record, it wasn't that we couldn't
You draw
be
the line with
fans.
the Hawks. That's where you don't.
No, it wasn't that we could no longer be the fan. It was just that if those teams play each other, we would root for. It was just a trade. It was how we worked. It was our compromise.
I would have given up the Cowboys for the Falcons. That's what I would have done.
Oh no, I'm still a Cowboys fan. And he doesn't. Well, honestly, neither of us care about NFL like too bad. So that one was like meh.
Are you because of that connection? Are you a SMU fan?
I mean,
because it's in Dallas.
SMU, if they're playing, like, sure, I'll root for them, but I'm not like, woo, SMU.
Okay, I didn't know. Like college football, right? Like, I didn't know.
They're not very good anyway.
No, they're not.
No, they've never been great.
Kind of a non-issue.
Right. It's a non-issue.
Anyway, all right. I feel like we should probably roll this in because we told Antoine
Yes.
we'll keep it to an hour. And of course we didn't.
It's all good. It's all good. I enjoy talking with y'all. Y'all are fun.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much again, Antoine, for being with us. And Jeremy, do you want to close this out? I feel like I've like introed every single topic.
No, it's been great, April. And I think tonight has been really good. And we've had some great like side discussions as well as real discussions. Antoine, we appreciate you being on. Remind us how we can find you on social media.
Yeah, just at Antwuan Malone. Just try it. Whatever the thing is, I'm not on Snapchat, but I'm on everything else at Antwuan Malone. So if you just
and it's ANTWUAN.
Yeah,
yes. Correct.
That's right. Yeah, for the podcast, ANTWUANMALONE. If you want to
awesome.
Want to add there, then do it. We're getting out and talking a little bit more. I love to interface with you guys and have conversation and be a part of y'all's journey, and hopefully y'all be part of mine. And hopefully I get a chance to come back on the show or have you guys come on my channel or something.
Absolutely.
Somehow continue conversations. It'd be great.
Either way, we'd love it. And tonight's been great. We missed Paul, but man, it was really great to have you on. April, it's always a ton of fun. So anyway, season 4, episode 2, I believe, in the books is tonight. And so for Antoine and April, I'm Jeremy. Thank you so much for tuning in. We're super grateful for you guys and the community that we have here with the Evangelicalist crew. If you haven't had a chance yet, go subscribe to the podcast and leave a review, 5-star rating, and write about why other people should engage with the podcast, especially on Apple Podcasts, because that helps this podcast connect with so many other people who can connect with our message. So anyway, for Antoine and April, I'm Jeremy. Love God, love people passionately. No strings attached. We will see you next week.